How did you grow it to where it is now? Obviously, it wasn't an overnight success. From people interested in business. What can you say what steps did you put in place? Was it the recruitment of staff, the systems that you had, the advertising that you did, or just raw hard work that enabled you to get it to where it is or get it off the ground?
Yeah, had the long-term vision, bro. Honestly, and we do things like if we had to, we'd do security for free for people, just to, or we'd do it at cost
To get the name out.
just to get the name out there. People aren't willing to do that now. And I always say to people, if you're in a business where you've got like a product or a service, give your product away to people. I get there's a cost to it, but like don't be short-sighted. Think long-term. So, good question. I'm still trying to figure out whether it is somewhere that I could settle my family with. Like I love Dubai, they're not perfect, as a country, they're not as a government, they're not perfect, but I do love Dubai.
Welcome to Karak with Kully, the podcast that serves up strong conversations with real entrepreneurs, founders and creators. I'm your host, Kully Sahota, and every week we brew up honest talk, the kind that hits hard and keeps it real, no filters, just stories, lessons and a whole lot of Karak. Welcome to another episode of Karak with Kully, and today we've got Sunny Araf on here. Sunny, how shall I introduce you then? Entrepreneur, philanthropist,
you can do whatever.
Old college friend.
Whatever, just Sunny Araf, and I'm sure the audience will kind of find me and find out who I am. But yeah, entrepreneur. I wear many hats, as you know.
Let's start at the beginning, the journey. It's an interesting journey, and for me to see you grow from far, it's really good to what you've achieved, and it'll be good for the listeners to know how you got there and any tips that you might have for them. So we went back to you went school with one of my very good friends, one of my best mates, and then we met each other at college. And you're a totally different guy there. And like the first question I have for you is, you didn't learn to speak like this from college.
I didn't.
Did you have some elocution lessons on the way?
To be honest, no. I mean, I think, you'll know that when someone speaks, obviously people have, like, it's just the way the upbringing, the school that they went to, the area that they lived in and whatever. And with us up there, the problem we have is that if we live in especially predominantly Asian areas, and all our friends are Asian, right, we pick up that kind of twang, that desi street twang. And I always say to people that it's, as much as we're proud of our roots and where we come from, people will not take you seriously if you sound like a roadman, and I keep telling my nieces and nephews off, and even my children, to be honest, because they drop these, they drop the lingo, right? I feel like a really old man now, right? But they drop the lingo, and I keep saying to them, being well-spoken and getting your message across is so, people will take you seriously. If you walk into an interview, or even if you walk into I always say to my kids, right, when we travel, we're looked after, right? Because we tend to get the upgrades at the hotels. We tend to get the good seats, and why is that? It's not because of the way I look or because people know that it's Sunny Araf that's coming to the hotel. It starts off from the very early interaction of when I walk into that hotel.
That's
right?
your brand, you are the brand.
That's 100%. Yeah. So things like greeting the bellboys and tipping them first at the very start, right? And then when you get to the counter, you read the name badge and you refer to that individual by their name. Right, and straight away you've built up this connection, this kind of chemistry, right? So they almost feel like they're your friend now, and they want to help you, right? So then when you say to them, right, John, are there any upgrades? With my family, and it's the first time we visited here and whatever. So it's all about communication.
It's like selling a story.
100%, 100%. And people tend to reciprocate that respect and love, and then they tend to really look after me and my family, and we're so blessed in that sense, right? And it all comes down to communication. Now, if I walked into a hotel like a roadman with this street twang, right? Unfortunately, people aren't going to take you seriously, and people think these roadmen think that they have respect on the streets or whatever, but in the real bad world where it really matters, you're not respected. People look at you like you're a fool.
That's a really valid point. And sometimes when you do hear that, and you are in certain situations, it's embarrassing, isn't it? So when and they're looking at you like they want like backing up or something, that you should be like patting them on the back.
Yeah, absolutely. and you're just looking at them like you're an idiot. and people around them are probably thinking the same thing, but probably a bit scared to say it to them, But that is, so I think it just comes to like traveling and, picking up like different accents from people or whatever. I don't know what it is to be. I haven't had any elocution lessons, to be honest.
I think
and as you know, I didn't go to a private school. You know, none of us did.
No, I think that's a really good point that you mentioned. I just wanted to say that you're very well spoken.
Thank you.
And it comes across very well. Yeah. So after college, is it correct that you became a policeman? Is this a story?
The story, it's out. I don't, it's funny actually you mentioned that, because I go to a gym, right, and when I went to the gym, I had one of the guys, and my gym's, it's a really good gym, right, but one of the guys came to me and said, "Sonny, you know what? I don't think you should tell everyone that you're an ex-copper." And I was like, "Why not?" He's like, "Just trust me, right?" And I was like, "Bro, I'm an ex-copper. It's done, right? I'm not like what. Anyway, so yeah, look, I went to school.
How did that come about?
I'll tell you, right? So I went to school and I went to Howzone College, as you know, and I did my A-levels. And then I was going to go to university to study international politics at Aberystwyth. Got accepted, right? Wanted to go. But, at home, things weren't good, Kully, right? So, my dad kind of like just struggling to put food on the table. Things were really tough at home. And I had to kind of make that decision that, do I be selfish and go to university and just like leave my parents? I could have funded it myself. I could have got a job at university or whatever, right? But I knew that my parents at home would be struggling, right? So, and I didn't want to put that pressure or that burden on them. I wanted to be at home to support my family. So I decided not to go to university. And it was the biggest, look, it was the best thing that I ever did now, because I'm sat here talking to you and life's different.
Now it seems like an easy decision, because obviously you've been successful. But back then when you're 16, 17, to make that decision because you don't know what the future holds, that's a massive decision.
It was horrible, because I'd see all my friends on, socials and whatever, and they're at university, they're having a good time, and I didn't do that. But so I didn't go to university, and I spoke to a careers advisor at college actually, and she was like, "Sonny, what do you want to do now?" And I was like, "Well, I want to join the police. I've heard they're recruiting." And I said, "But I want to go to university first, and I'm just taking some time out." And she was like, "Why do you want to go to university? Like, you can just apply for the police. They're crying out for Asian police officers, right?" So I said, "Okay." So I just applied. Literally just applied. I went to like an open day, met a guy. He was really good. He was the guy responsible for getting people in, and we just kind of hit it off. And he said to me, "Just fill out the application, Sonny, and when you've filled it out, bring it back to me, and I'll check it over to make sure that you've got everything that you need." So I applied, and then they put a block on recruitment. So I was like halfway through the process, and they just put a block on it. And it took me two years to get in, because they said, "We've stopped recruitment, and when we restart it, we'll tell you." Right. So, and then I just applied and joined,
So did you have to wait for 2 years then?
Yeah, I did. Look, those were, when we talk about development and learning skills and becoming the man that I am today, those 2 years probably taught me more in my life than any other job or career. I've had many jobs, to be honest. I've worked for myself, right? But because when I had that gap, so from college, and before I applied for the police, I did various roles, right? I did working in restaurants, I was literally bussing tables, cleaning toilets, flipping burgers, all that good stuff. But I did sales. Right, and like one of my first jobs was working for a company called Universal Utilities in a call center, and it was outbound calling, trying to sell people electricity, right? And if for anyone that's done sales,
it's hard.
It's tough, right? Especially when you are trying to sell something to someone on the phone, right? Getting them to
calling.
You're calling Mr. Singh and trying to get him to like switch his supplier, and Mr. Singh's been with British Gas for like 20 years. And that's all he ever knows, right? And then you're trying to sell him. So it's difficult, but it taught me resilience. It taught me how to keep yourself motivated, and it taught me that, your next win is just around the corner.
And you have to be thick-skinned as well,
100%.
And like with any business, but especially with that, I always do Stay Bright Windows. It's been Bearwood, if you remember.
Yeah, I do actually.
Work there, and calling people, trying to sell windows. It's terrible.
It's
it's
tough,
like
right?
that's like how it swear at you and everything.
Yeah.
And you put, you're old enough to remember the yellow pages. You have like a book of people to call
That's
people
what we
from.
had.
Yeah.
That's what look.
No database.
100%. Like in our time, literally they'd give us the yellow pages, and I would literally have to just start from the middle, the end. There was no structure, right? Which was difficult because I could start from page one, and the guy down the hall in the office could have started on page 1 too. So I'm phoning people, and they're like, "Somebody from your company just phoned me. Stop phoning me."
Yeah.
And then I'm phoning him again, like, you're the fourth person. There was no structure, right? It was just whoever's the most hungriest, whoever's going to make the most phone calls, and whoever's going to be like late at night, you know. And I'd stay in the office till after everybody's left because I was hungry to get those sales in. So that taught me that hunger and sales, and the very valuable skill of when you're getting knocked down, get back up.
Yeah.
You get knocked down again, get back up, right? And if you keep getting back up, eventually you'll find your feet. So I did that, but then I did door-to-door selling for a company, right? And that was, for me, a game changer, because imagine you get dumped in the middle of an estate, right? And you have to, at that time, right, there was no...
What were you selling utilities?
So it was, no, we were selling a thing called, it was like a card. So what they'd do is, if you were a new restaurant or a pizza shop in an area, this company would go to you and say, we are going to promote your services, right, your shop. We won't charge you for it, but what we want you to do is give us things that we can sell, so like discount vouchers.
Okay.
So you'd say, fine, okay, I'll give you like, so it was a big card, fold out card, and you'd have like 10% off vouchers, you'd have 150% off voucher, you know, that kind of thing. And we would go in door to door promoting that product and selling it, and we're selling like for 20 quid.
Okay.
So imagine if you're going to someone's house, right, and trying to get 20 quid off them, right, and it was raining, it's snowing, it's hailing, whatever it is, right, you're soaked, you know, you're having a bad day, because imagine knocking on 100 doors and every single person telling you to get lost.
Yeah, that's tough.
You know, and you're soaked through, you're hungry, you're in areas that you don't even know, and sometimes you're in a racist area, because we were like, we're going back, you know, 25 years or whatever, right? So and we're the only Asians in the area, honestly. But it taught me resilience, and it just taught me that, you know what, never give up. You know, and those qualities that I got, that I gained, those skills that I gained during sales, I use them now.
Yes, with sales, like even though I do accounts, like it's a selling business. I'm selling a service, and you have to sit in the front of the client. You have to sell them to them. Anyone can do a set of accounts. Yeah. You know, there's no difference from me doing or anyone else doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But anything that you do, you know, even all the top entrepreneurs saying that everything is sales, isn't it?
And look, we're constantly selling.
Yeah.
We're selling ourselves not in that way, but you know, we're selling out. You know, that is like absolutely key, right? Yeah. So your personal brand, you know, from the minute you walk out the house to the minute you walk back into the house, you're constantly selling. And in a way, you're also selling to your family too. Yeah. You know, you're trying to sell them the dream, you know, and if you do the sale right, they'll be on board.
Yeah, these days, look how hard it is, like with social media, and you know, all the kids have got social media. In our day and age, we were lucky, and in school, college, we never had cameras. Yeah. So
we're lucky, absolutely.
Can you imagine?
That's why we're not being exposed.
Yeah, that's I was saying, can you imagine?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, kids nowadays have got so much to compete with. Yeah. You know, I don't envy the new. I think our generation, like the 80s kids, was probably the last one where things were very simple. Yeah. You know, the stuff that we would enjoy. You know, you try and tell that to the kids now, they're not interested, right? So now we've got a generation of children that are just glued to iPads and mine included, right, and phones and YouTube, and they'll quite happily spend the whole day. Yeah. You know, spending or playing Fortnite or whatever, you know, and it's a shame because this time they're never going to get back.
Yeah, the interaction
with people and going out and climbing trees and you know, getting chased in the park by the local bully and all that kind of stuff, right? That used to happen. Yeah. That kids don't have that nowadays, and I feel bad. And it's up to us as parents and guardians to actually try and provide that balance to them, to try and give them a bit of that childhood back.
Like when we were kids, probably saying with yourself that you know the names of the people on the street. You'll go out and play. Of course, you know, if you stay out late tonight, you know, your dad might give you a clip around the ear or whatnot. Yeah, but you still were allowed, like, you know, you was till it's dark.
Because it was safe.
Yeah.
You know, so my signal of going home was the lights would come on. Yeah. The street lights would come on, right? And then you know, right, you need to get back home, right? But it was safe for us to do that. It was safe for us to go to the park. It was safe for us to go to your mate's house. I used to get the bus to West Bromwich when I was like young, you know, young. And you think I'm going to let my kids walk to the shop on their own now? And that's crazy. You know, and that's crazy, right? My son's got, you know, he's 15. He's got an electric scooter. We bought it for him, and he's not allowed to go out of the cul-de-sac that I live in.
I think like we were, I don't know, maybe we had to be. We were pretty streetwise, yeah. But same with my son, like he wouldn't know, like, you know, if he ever got into a bit of trouble, or, you know, I'm advocating that, or how to stand up for himself, or, you know, how to diffuse a situation. Yep. It is scary because there's other people, because of their upbringing, their situation that they're in, that their kids are
Look, the danger we have is our kids, right? They like, so my kids, for example, they go to private school and they're literally mollycoddled, right?
Yeah.
And it's a difficult, as a parent, right? It's very difficult because you don't want to spoil them, you don't want them to be entitled twats, but at the same time you want to give them all the things that you never had, right? So it's so that balance, and there's no right answer. I don't know what the right answer is. It's difficult, but we you know, we try. We can only try, right? But they keeping our job as parents is to preserve their innocence for as long as possible. You know, so my message to parents would be is preserve that innocence. Don't look at your child and think, oh, he's a bit of a laddu, he's a bit of a softie, he's a bola, whatever he is, right? And he needs to be a bit tough. No, right? So like, teach them the skills of being able to defend themselves and know when they're in danger and what to do, right? But the relationship that we should have with our kids is that when something goes wrong, they shouldn't think, what's dad gonna say? They should think, I need to tell dad.
Yeah.
And I always tell my kids this: if you're in trouble, if you've done something wrong, come and tell me and we can sort it out. If you don't tell me and it's too late, I may not be able to help you. You know, and that ability of not being able to help your kids would kill a father, right? Because they're in trouble, they've been arrested, for example. You know, God protect all our kids, right? But so that's, we've got to get our kids ready for that, to know, you know. But I think, and the kids that come from maybe underprivileged families, maybe live in underprivileged areas, bro, the hustle that these kids have, you know, if it's channeled correctly, they're unbelievable. You know, I did a talk not so long ago about leadership, and it was about leadership and how we work within our communities, and there was a group of leaders in the room, and I said to them, look, the talent that comes from underprivileged communities, from BAME communities, right, is second to none. Some of these children will outperform graduates from Oxford and Cambridge. Because the Oxford and the Cambridge graduates, they're academic, they're very intelligent, but you know that hustle, that spark that you need to be successful in life, they haven't got it.
Yeah, it's like I went to India a couple of years ago, and like you see some of the street kids, hustling on the side, and that's hustle. You know what they
I
go
love
through,
it, man.
and they're smiling, and like, you know, you see them like from day and night, they're there on the side of the road selling their beads or whatever else they're selling. And that's like proper hustle. And like you said, like, okay, they're underprivileged differently, but that's what brought in them to like carry on with that.
Look, that resilience, right? And I always talk about this. You know, look, as children of immigrants, we're quite fortunate because we've seen our parents hustle, and they've seen their parents hustle, right? So we come from families where it's second nature for us to go out and work and hustle. We don't just sit at home and expect the state to pay benefits, and we just that's all right for us. We've only ever seen our parents go out and hustle, right? So the examples have already been set, and the foundations have been laid, and we can never repay our parents and the older generation. You know, like I always say to people, you know, when you see Uncle G in the mosque or the temple, right, and you know, don't disregard him, because see this bande that you see, right? These guys laid the foundations and went through the shit, so we can have the lives that we have today. So next time you see Uncle G in the Gurdwara or in the masjid, right, you better make sure that you stand up and shake his hand and give him some respect and appreciate the sacrifices that he made, because had he not made those sacrifices, and the women too, we would not be in the privileged position that we are today. Look, we have racism in society, yeah, absolutely we do, but they've seen the bulk of it.
The worst,
They've seen the worst racism, and you know the sad thing is that some of our parents, Kully, won't even speak to us about it because it's trauma that they don't want to revisit. You know, so you won't actually, and look, that generation never opens up anyway, right? You can't have like I can't have the conversation with my dad that my kids can have with me, right? So we'll never really know. And if you get the opportunity, sit down with your parents and your grandparents, if you're fortunate to have them around, and just ask them about the troubles that they went through and the sacrifices, and you know, because I tell you one thing, once you've heard the story, and if they do open up to you, you'll appreciate what you've got now. We think we've got it bad.
It's nothing,
bro. It's nothing, honestly. And so it really pisses me off when I see kids disrespecting their parents and their grandparents, right, and not appreciating the sacrifices that they made.
What was your upbringing like? You know, it seems like very similar to yourselves or others our generation, where like the parents are working, you know, hard, try to provide for the families. Were you left to your own devices with your, you know, siblings?
Yeah. So look, my mother was the only woman in our family because I'm come from the Pakistani culture. So in the Pakistani culture at that time, the women never used to go out and work. You're right. or it was or in our family it was quite rare that women went out to work, right? So my mum was the only one that went out to work. So dad was grafting, mum was grafting, right? So we were left to my older sister to look after us, and we just literally left at our own devices. Iron your own uniform, make your own breakfast, you know, walk to school on your own. We never had our parents around for like activities at school, whatever that was. They just weren't coming. You know, the white kids, the parents would be there, the grandparents would be there, cheering them on and whatever. And we never had that.
Yeah.
And we don't hate our parents for that, because they were out grafting, and we know that and we appreciate it. So I had an amazing childhood, but we weren't rich. We were poor. That's the reality of it, is we were poor. We didn't have all the nice things. You know, whereas kids were wearing Rockports in school, I was the kid with pods. Remember the pods, right? Or whatever. Or the high-tech trainers, and other kids were wearing Nike, right? But I kind of disguised it in a way, because I was very confident, you know, in my in the way I came across. I was popular in school, you know. So I never let that become a barrier where I was getting bullied or anything like that, you know. But I knew that we were poor, right? So there's certain things that you wouldn't even propose to your dad, because you know it's just not like he just can't afford it. So we wouldn't even ask him. Whereas kids nowadays, they don't have that understanding of, like, you know.
It's very, very similar. It's like at that time, not hate or resent. At that time, I wanted all the nice trainers. I was like, Dad, like, you know, I asked him why I can't have them. I was like, oh, Dad don't like me. He's not letting me have these trainers. But only later when I realised that those pair of trainers that I wanted probably his week's wages.
Absolutely.
And like he was doing, you know, he didn't go like we go on holidays or have social events to spend time with our kids. We weren't going to the cinema with them. He couldn't they couldn't afford that.
No, they wanted to do it.
Yeah, it's like,
you know.
but it's only now I'm older that I realise that they done the best that they could do.
Yeah.
It's not because they didn't love us. They're showing their love in the only way that they knew.
Yeah.
And what they could do best for us.
And they didn't have time to build those relationships with us, because they were always grafting, and when they come back, they were tired, you know.
Yeah.
So the luxuries that we have nowadays of being able to take our children on holiday and spend time with them, and the weekends, and I mean I'm blessed in a sense that if I want to go to the office, I do, and if I don't, I can take client calls at home. And you know, with I think what COVID taught us is the fact that you can work from home, and you know, so I'm fortunate that I can spend that time and build those relationships with my children, whereas our parents maybe never had that, you know. And it takes a real deep understanding for us to actually put ourselves into their shoes and say, because some children grow up with resent, you know, resent, like I wasn't loved.
Or still blaming the parents for their own situation that they could change themselves.
Absolutely. You know, don't blame you know, your background, because I'm sat here today, we're sat here today, proof that you don't have to come from a privileged family. You don't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth to be able to be successful in life. Yes, there are advantages to those that obviously come from money, come from wealth, right? But you can build it, and there's never been a better time, I believe, to ever make money. With AI and with the technology that people have now. Like we said, we had yellow pages, right? You know, we had yellow pages on the internet when it would load up. Remember when the page would load up, right? But what people have now is unbelievable. So it's not that there isn't opportunities out there. It's the mindset of individuals, right? We have a generation of millennials, whatever you want to call them, that want to eat but don't want to hunt. I always say this, right? Everybody wants to eat, but very few people want to go out and hunt. So if we have a generation of hunters that are willing to go out and make those sacrifices and spend all day in the jungle, for example, trying to go for their prey, we'll have successful people coming out.
Yeah, you mentioned that your children go to private school. I pay for my kids to go to school as well. Why do you send them to private school? Like, you know, me and you were sitting here, we didn't have that background, and like we done okay because people like, oh, if they're going to study the old knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, look, I think for me, I mean, mine was I don't really have a choice, if I'm honest, because the area that I live in, there's no good schools there. Okay. So we applied for, because I live near my parents, right? So I live across the road from my parents. I don't want to move from there, right? Because my mum and dad are there, so I want to stay with my mum and dad. So I didn't really have a choice of schooling, because, you know, like my son got accepted into like a school which I'd never send him there, because I know the school, I know the, you know, I just wouldn't, right? So, and I wanted them to have private education, you know, but I'm quite fortunate that the school that they go to, it's not like a posh school or anything. You know, you've got middle class families there, you've got working class families there. So it's not that it's one of those Eton schools. It's a very good mix, right? But I just felt that if God's given me the ability to do it, and I can give them a head start in a way, And also, I was scared. I was scared to send them to a mainstream school because I'm hearing stuff of what's happening in mainstream schools and children are getting stabbed outside and whatever. And I just didn't want that for my kids.
Well, this is exactly the same. So the nearest school to me, there was like a stabbing outside the school. Like someone came in with the machete. And obviously it scares us as parents. But the reason it's not just for the education, it's for who they get to meet at that
The contacts,
time.
the connections. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, look, there's different levels to it, right? So obviously, you know, you send. We with one of my companies, we used to do security at Eton College, right?
Okay.
So I know the types of children that go to Eton College, and I remember when we used to do open days, it was just different level because you've got people turning up, families turning up, like you've got royalty turning up, and people with their drivers turning up and their security, right? So you know, and obviously that network that your kids would achieve going to somewhere like Eton, where there's future leaders and prime ministers and presidents of the world, is next level, but. I just wanted, you know, when I spoke to the headmistress at the school that my kids go to, the first meeting that I had with her is, I said to her, I said, I don't expect my children to come out of here with straight A's. Like, that's not my expectation from you as a teacher, right? I said, but what I do expect is that my kids come out here grounded, that they know how to speak to people, they're respectful, they know how to respect their elders, they've got a good moral, you know, grounding. And I said, if you can do that for me and my kids come out here knowing that, then you've done a good job, right? And if they get the A levels, if they get the A's, for example, then that's a bonus, right? Because it's not the end of the world.
I've seen that already with my son. So my son goes to you know, the secondary school now, and he's so confident. Like, they were speaking to adults, and that is like, I couldn't teach him that, like, spending all that time on my own. So you need to have that backing of the school as well. And so when like other parents come and speak to him, he's like a little adult. He's better spoken than me, but so it's good. Amazing, and that and so that's not, like you said, it's not the educational A's or the qualifications. It's that whole rounded how he's achieved that from going to that school. So, you know, we spoke about your journey from college and the decisions that you had to make from not going to university and doing the sales roles. How did you set up the security business?
Okay, so my brother-in-law at the time, when I was in the police, he used to work for a security company, and he wasn't really.
Sorry, how long was you actually in the police for then?
I was only there for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just did the 2. I was very young, and I did the 2. I had look, just for the record, I had an amazing time, and I still think that it's a great job, right? So the things that I learned in the police.
Still got the uniform?
Yes. I have. I can't get into it.
I won't ask no more.
No. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's changed now, but I've got the uniform and parts of the uniform, to be honest. But when I my brother-in-law was working in the police, and in the security, and I was in the police. And I remember, like, one day he just phoned me, and he'd recently been promoted, so he had access to the finance office, right? So he was in the finance office being a typical nosy Asian dude, right? And he phoned me once, he was like, Sunny, he was on a night shift, and he was just chilling in the finance office, and he goes, I've just, on top of the shredder, so somebody obviously messed up, right? So they left loads of invoices on top of the shredder, right? So he was just having a nose, right? And he started going through these invoices on top of the shredder, right? Which obviously were there to be shredded the next morning, right? And he said, and he phoned me, he was like, where are you? I was like, in the canteen, is that what you're doing? I was like, what do all police officers do? I'm eating donuts and drinking coffee, bro. Come on, that's a bit of a stupid question, right? I literally was in the canteen. I thought eating donuts, but I was definitely having coffee, right? And he said, he goes, listen to this. So he starts reading off these figures, right? And I remember the company that he used to work for, and at that time, the rates that they were charging per hour, and he was like, they're charging, like, I remember, like, you know, one of the clients, British Airways Investment Trust, you know, have security for their AGM meeting. The company charges them for like 12 hours. The office is only required for 4 hours while they have the AGM meeting, right? And they're charging like £18 an hour, and they're paying us, I think at the time, it must have been £3-4 an hour, whatever the hourly rate was, right? And he goes, they're making money, bro. It's like, no way. I says, you know, we can do this.
What an opportunity.
You know, so, and I, as in my job, what I discovered is, as a police officer, when I was attending break-ins and burglaries, the one thing that I always noticed was people were becoming victims of crime when their security was crap. There was flaws in their security, right? Or the security officer was sleeping. So I already had this in my head that actually there is a requirement for security in a professional manner done properly. So when he told me that, I thought, bro, and I was like, I was done with the police anyway by that stage. I was like, you know what, I can't see myself doing this for 30 years, right? It's gonna send me crazy, to be honest, because you see stuff that you don't see daily, you know, and like mentally it takes a toll on you, physically it takes a toll on you. And the police at the time, it was very incestuous. They were all, you know, in it together. They'd all go to the same pubs, you know. They'd all go, you know. It was just like, and for me,
A cult.
Yeah, it was like a cult. Yeah, it felt like a cult. And I was like, I can't do this. You know, I come from a different culture, from a different religion, you know, and it's just going to be really difficult for me to fit in. I'd have to change my personality and change, you know, my worldviews to be able to fit in, and kiss some serious ass to get promoted. I just wasn't willing to do it. So anyway, so then we just started the conversation, and you know, before you know it, we started a company, and the rest is history.
Did you have an office in jewelry court? Didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Is that where you first started?
Yeah.
So I remember that. So I used to work in town. I was like, oh, that's Sunny's office.
Yeah, on George Street. You know, so we decided to look for an office, and we were.
Is that the one down the road from Raj Street on the corner? Is that?
Yeah, that's the one.
It is, isn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah.
On I think it's George Street. But it was funny. We were looking for offices, right? And so we'd phone up agents and book bookings, but then we would just do it on foot. So we just walk, because jewelry court is not that big, right? So we walk. We knew we wanted to be in jewelry court central. We'd walk around and we'd see like a to-let sign. We'd just knock on the door. So I remember one day I was walking around and I seen this. I went onto George Street, right, and I seen this massive sign saying to-let, and then I saw 3 Range Rovers parked outside this office, right, and the 3 Range Rovers had like time sec. Right, so it's like security number plates, right?
Okay.
So I knew that there was a security company of someone, like a friend of mine, and I said, I kind of visualized that could be us in the future, right? You know, with the Range Rovers and the private number plates and whatever. So I phoned up my brother-in-law. I said, listen, I found the office. I found it, right? He goes, where is it? I goes, look, I've just like, it's in the jewelry court anyway. And then lo and behold, we spoke to the landlord's PA, arranged a viewing, and then we got an office, right? But it's funny because at that time, I never knew what the future would hold and where I'd be, right? And the crazy thing is, Kully, is that when I looked at that office and I wanted to be the guy with the Range Rover and the private number plate, today I've pulled up in your car park in my Range Rover with my private plate, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
you know, it's mad, right? You know, and I don't say that to boast or brag.
Yeah.
I say it to as a lesson for listeners to say, look, you visualize it, you want it, you pray for it, you work hard, you get it.
See, everyone visualizes it, yeah, and they read The Secret and they're like, oh, I visualize it's going to happen, yeah. They don't want to do that work.
So you can't just visualize it and do the...
Yeah, so it's on my vision board. And like, you have, like, okay, it's great to have that there, but you have to do that in between.
Of course, you know. And I look up, and you know, I'm so fortunate because I look back at, you know, different parts of my life of things that I wanted to achieve and things that we'd always talk about, you know, like, you know, as you do with your friends and your business partners, you sit there and say, wouldn't it be amazing if we were able to do this and this? And I'm so grateful that I've lived a life where I've been able to achieve most of them. I mean, look, there's still a lot to do. I mean, I'm 42 years old, right? So I don't, you know, God willing, don't plan on stopping now. But it's that the lesson really is for people is to say, look, if you want something and you want to achieve it and you really, really want it and you go out and work hard, you can achieve it. Don't let people, don't let people tell you that you can't. And if they do tell you that you can't, you know, the best feeling is proving them wrong.
Yeah. How did you grow it to where it is now? Obviously, it wasn't an overnight success, you know, from people, you know, interested in business. What can you say what steps did you put in place? You know, was it the recruitment of staff, the systems that you had, the advertising that you did, or just raw hard work that enabled you to, you know, get it to where it is or get it off the ground?
Yeah. So look, we were in an industry which was dominated by white people, right? So there was very few Asians at that time that had their own security companies.
Or were doing it properly.
Or were doing it properly, right?
Yeah.
So we already had barriers to entry, which was difficult, and we did suffer a lot of racism when we first started. You know, we had doors closed in our face. We had people not even have conversations with us. And I'm the last person to say to draw the race card, because I believe that if you're a twat, you're a twat. No matter what color you are, people are going to, you know, if you're being ridiculous, people are not going to respect you. That goes back to what we were saying earlier on, right? So I don't ever draw the race card, but I know that we were at a disadvantage, right? So very quickly realized that I need to brand myself in a way that I'm a serious player, you know. And it's funny because like at the time I remember there was so I'll tell you this story. There was the regulator, the SIA, right? And they did this, the Door Supervisors Network Forum, right? Where they invited 10 of the biggest companies to come and sit around the table and speak to the regulator and talk about regulation and whatever. So, and then they posted companies that are interested in joining, right, fill out this form, right? So at the time, our business had probably about 3 employees, and there was me and my business partner, right? My brother-in-law. So I was like, I filled it out and I sent it off. And I got accepted, right? So they've agreed to have us on this table. So now this was in central London, right, in some posh hotel, and I have at that time never travelled to London on my own, right? Wasn't going to drive because the clapped up banger that I had was never going to make it on the motorway, right? So I got a train ticket, which was daunting in itself, because just looking at the cost of the train ticket, I was like, you know, as a new business, you can't afford. So I remember, Kully, I swear I'm not even joking. I don't own a suit. I probably wore like school trousers that I probably still had that I could fit into, right? And a white shirt, and I had this long leather coat on, right? It was just
Matrix.
Literally like the Matrix. But I got off at Houston train station, I think, and I was getting late, so I had to run to this meeting. And so I've got there, and I'm sweating. It's hot. It's summer. I don't know why I wore a leather jacket and trench coat. So I've gone in. And some of the biggest security companies in the country are on this table, right? And these guys are a lot older, you know, proper pinstripe suits with the Rolexes and the Mont Blanc pens, and you know, and I'm just there like what am I? But anyway, I owned it, bro. I just walked in, I sat down with these guys, right? And we were just like, and I didn't let anyone know that we were a tiny company. I was just as much as part of that conversation as the guy that had 3,000 members of staff, 3,000 door supervisors, right? So very early on in my career, I started sitting at the tables where I knew that I had to be, and started having the conversations I was in with the regulator, and I kind of branded myself in a way that, because I took personal branding very seriously, so I spent hours and hours and hours on LinkedIn, right? Just making connections, sending emails. And of course, everything comes from God and His grace, right? But it was a lot of hard work. You know, we were able to scale our companies and grow to where we are because we didn't do stupid spending. So, as you know, as an accountant, that you know, the mistake that entrepreneurs make is that when they start making money, they start spending money. And in a partnership, sometimes, and I've seen partnerships fail, is when the one partner is the switched on one, and he's like quite grounded, and the other one's just a prick, right? And he just wants to spend the money. And so me and my partner, we're very fortunate that we're all on the same wavelength, and we said, you know what, we eat last. That was our rule, right? Everybody else gets paid, and we always said to ourselves that our time will come.
It's a long-term investment.
It's a long-term investment. So all our profits would be reinvested into the business.
A lot of businesses these days, I say it from the side, they look at that short-term approach. They want to like either rip someone off or do something cheap or for a short-term gain, rather than seeing that long-term vision.
We had the long-term vision, bro, honestly, and we do things like, if we had to, we'd do security for free for people, you know, just to, or we'd do it at cost.
To get the name out.
Just to get the name out there, you know. People aren't willing to do that now, you know. And I always say to people, you know, if you're in a business where you've got like a product or a service, you know, give your product away to people. I get there's a cost to it, you know, but like, don't be short-sighted. Think long-term, right?
Exactly the same. So when I used to do accounts first, I wasn't busy at all, you know, first starting off, and I've got clients now I'm still losing money on, because I gave them the cheap price just to pretend I was staying busy, just to sign them up.
Yeah, look at that.
But what they did is they referred me to someone else, and so the business slowly started growing. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it was never like, because I learned from doing that client's account, you know, build a relationship with them. They'll tell their friends and family. I've done the best job I could.
Yeah.
Made no money on it.
Made
a loss on it.
It's not, but look, we know this, right? It's not always about making money, right? And we hear about these, you know, multi-billion-pound corporations, and they publish their accounts, and they're actually in loss, right?
Yeah.
And you think, how did they lose like 500 million pounds or whatever, right? So it's a long game, right? Yeah. And of course, I mean, these corporations is different because ultimately it's not their money, right? So, you know, as long as the board is getting paid, everyone's happy. But for us, it's a case of knowing that delayed gratification You know, I say that to people. If you don't know what that means, Google it, right? But delayed gratification is so important, you know.
Especially these days, everyone wants that dopamine hit straight away.
It's
With anything, whether it be social media or whatever they're watching or doing, it's like everyone wants that fix, the hit straight away without doing the work.
Yeah, everyone wants to see results straight away, right? So like, if you want something, you know, if you're building a business, and it's very tempting, right? Because what social media teaches us is that to come across as being successful, you have to have the nice car, the nice watch, and whatever. But actually, you don't. You know, I suppose it depends what field you're in. If you're a scammer, then maybe that's what you need, right? You know,
it tracks that
to show people the high life, right? But delayed gratification, you know, spend time reinvesting your money into your business, grow your team. You know, so if we look at why we in answer to your question, why we were able to grow, is I had an amazing team around me. You know, we did the whole delayed gratification scenario. We branded ourselves, or I branded myself to be a go-to in that sense, and we just did whatever it took, like honestly whatever it took, right? So once we had I remember we had a client. It was a TV studio in London. We were meant to provide them with security, and the security guard blew out a couple of hours before the shift, phoned in sick. I can't make it, right? So we're like, so my partner at the time, or my partner now, Junaid, he was in a seminar, and I remember he said to me, I'm in a seminar and you won't be able to contact me. And he was the operator, he was the operations guy. I don't have a clue about this, right? I'm thinking, yo, this is a really important customer, and what do I do? So I had no choice. So I literally just phoned my wife. I said, listen, get my uniform ready. I'm driving home. I'm going to London. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, I've got to go and do this shift. And I just, you know, literally pulled up outside my drive, and she's run downstairs, given me my uniform on a hanger. I put it in the car, and I just bombed it down the motorway, right? Because I could not let this customer down. So got there, and the customer's never met me face to face, right? So he was like, he just thought I was a security guard, right? Yeah. So I've said, hi Rob, it's Sunny. And he was like, Sunny? He said, mate, what are you doing here? And I told him the story, and he said, mate, you know what, I take my hats off to you. He said, the fact that you're sat here as a director of a company. And I said, Rob, we had no choice.
You're rolling your sleeves up.
You know, I said, that's it. And then while I was there, I ended up staying there for 3 days because, you know, we couldn't find anyone. So I booked, you know, while I was there on my laptop, booked a hotel and whatever. But my point is, we just did whatever it took, right? And then that same customer ended up spending millions with us, you know, because they respected the hustle. And every time I see him, you know, he always mentioned that story.
That's a brilliant story.
Honestly, he tells everyone, like if I see him at an award ceremony or at a conference, right, he always tells us that story, and he appreciates it. So go the extra mile for your clients, and they'll appreciate it.
Even from what you said, look, I'm learning something that I really admire, that you held your own in that meeting with, you know, the peers who were at that time doing better than you. Because when I first started business, like I don't do no networking anymore. I just go to like networking, wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go for these, you know, I won't name them, I'm going for the network events. And like, I used to think, I don't fit in here. These guys have been in business for 5 years. And what am I doing here? What do I want to speak to? And I doubted myself. And that's why I thought that I didn't do as well when that. People got to know me, but I wasn't as successful in that at the early stages in networking because I doubted myself. It's only when I got a little bit of confidence after. But you done that from the beginning, that you had that inner belief and inner confidence.
I was just. I mean, I'm fortunate that maybe it was my upbringing, but I don't know. But I always had that confidence, and then obviously the jobs that I did after you know, school and after college, right? But it's funny you touch on the networking thing, and it's a really important topic, right? Because we have. In Birmingham and other cities around the country, many networking events, right? And as an entrepreneur, you'll feel that you have to be in every single room. And I'm telling you now, as an established entrepreneur or serial entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, you don't have to be in every single room. You need to pick which rooms that you need to be in, because you physically can't be at every networking event.
It's draining. Right?
It's draining. And you know that the same events, the same people, like, what you have to ask yourself is what value am I going to get? So a tip that I normally do is, if it's a good event, they normally will publish the delegate list of who's attending beforehand, right? So you look at that list and say, you have to pinpoint, these are the people that I want to speak to. So you circle those people, right? And then when you get to this event, rather than just, you know, working the floor and speaking to every Tom, Dick and Harry, you need to have a strategy before you go to that event, right? So there's 3 people that you want to meet, because he's the CEO of British Gas and whatever. and I want that contract, so I want to make an introduction, right? And don't be afraid to do that. So like now with my coaching clients, Kully, this is one of the things that I will do with them is if they are shy and timid and whatever, I will take them to events. I will go with them to events and I will show them the art or the skill of networking, of going up to people and arranging introductions, right? Because that isn't a natural God-given gift, right? It's, do you see what I mean? You have to develop that.
Did you have a coach or?
I did, yeah. I mean, like, when I say I had a coach, I didn't have.
There's nothing wrong with that. People think these days, if you got a coach, that you need some help. I know. I'm not saying to generally when I speak to people, and I know the people who've got coaches, and they hide that they have a coach.
Yeah.
It's like, the best footballers in the world have coaches. Sports people have coaches, and like to improve, I do feel that you need someone.
Look, if I had a coach, I would have been a lot successful a lot quicker.
or falling out with your coach.
Honestly, right? Because what the mistakes that I made, having somebody more senior, that established, that's been there and bought the T-shirt, could have saved me a lot of money, right? And as you know, and we touched on this earlier on, right? Being an entrepreneur and a leader or a founder of a business is probably one of the most loneliest places, right? And there's not many people in our lives that we can speak to about that, because we may have outgrown our friends.
Yeah.
We don't really want to speak to our partner about business, because when you get home, who wants to talk about work, right? And your family may really not understand it, because your family will always have a different view to the outside world. Like, it's a sad reality, but with me, for example, so as you know, I'm on social media, my biggest supporters are not my family members.
It's people that you don't know.
It's people that I don't know.
Exactly the same.
I'll post a video.
Yeah.
I'll share it in a family group, right? No one will like it.
Yeah.
No one will comment on it. No one will share it, right? Do they take me for granted? Are they thinking, oh, it's just Sunny, doing this? I don't know. But those people that don't know me, that have followed me for years, are my biggest fans, right? Yeah. They will like it, they will share it, they will comment, and they're always like, Sunny, because we all need that uplift.
Validation.
That validation, right, all the time. So had I, and that's the problem with people nowadays, is that we don't take self-development seriously. We're not reading enough. We're not going to seminars enough. Yeah. We're not investing in a coach or a mentor, So, and look, I'm not saying it because I'm a coach, right? But the reality is that, and more specifically within our, South Asian community, people do not invest enough money in themselves. We're quite happy to go and spend a fortune on handbags, cars, watches, and all the good stuff, right? But when it comes to stuff that you can't quantify, the skills that you will learn and the mistakes that you will be prevented from making by having a good coach, right?
That's a very important point I think you made there, that money does not equal growth. I know people rich, they have loads of money, but they've not grown since they were their inner child. From when they've not grown their inner child. Yeah,
it's sad. And like what I see, like at the moment, what I'm seeing a lot speaking to people is that you have a lot of people out there that, from a worldly perspective, they'll look very successful, right? They've got the car, the house, the wife, the 2.4 children, or whatever, right? But they're actually lost. They don't know where they want to go in life. They've reached a certain place in their lives where what society tells them is successful, where they feel they should be, or where they are, but actually they're lost because they're no longer enjoying that job. They're no longer enjoying that money. Their relationships are broken down. They don't have a relationship with their kids, and they're just a bit lost, and they don't know where to take their life. So that's when someone like me comes in, where we sit down and we just break it down.
Here's someone else to talk to a different perspective, and there's many coaches. I think people are reluctant to use coaches because they haven't walked the walk, where you've actually walked the walk here. So you've got some credible. You haven't just got a qualification. Yeah. You've got hands-on, real life experience.
I'm not your typical coach, because you're right. We see it on social media. There's many coaches.
Too many coaches
and whatever, right? And you're right, absolutely. Which is why I charge a premium for because now that I have a coach, right? And it's funny, I was speaking to my coach about starting coaching. This is mad, right? So we were talking about price points, and like I said, where do you see me pitch it fitting in or whatever? And he said, Sunny, you've got over 25 years of experience. You've scaled companies to figures what people could only dream of. You're an award-winning entrepreneur that's been in the Times top 50, right? You require a premium, right? Yeah. And I didn't want to just work with anyone. I want to be selective with my clients.
Filters a lot of people out.
100%. Yeah. So The minute we have a conversation, I send you that proposal, I will know straight away whether we're going to be working together or not.
It's not that someone thinks that you're expensive. If they think you're expensive, you not sold your value to them.
We're not the right fit,
Yeah.
right? We're not the right fit because the benefit that I have is I'm able to turn clients down.
Yeah.
I'm able to decide because it's not my bread and butter.
Yeah.
It's not the cash that's going to pay my mortgage or whatever, you know. So for me, it's doing something that I enjoy because there's no better feeling than helping someone that's a bit stuck in life grow. You know, there's no amount of money can give you that gratification, that I can't even explain it, but it's just amazing to see my clients grow and prosper and become confident individuals. It's just the best feeling in the world.
So you mentioned that you get the buzz from helping people. Yeah, you're in a fortunate position. You don't do that from a monetary value, and you like meeting people, helping people. Talking about the helping side of things, I see that you do a lot of humanitarian work as well. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So look, we've got our own foundation. We've got the ISA Foundation. So it's a self-funded foundation, which our family kind of.
Okay.
But I say family, me and my partner, we put our money into it. So we put a portion of our profits into that, and we fund our own projects, right? So we work all over the world, mainly focusing on education because we believe that bringing people out of the circle of poverty. You know, it's that age-old saying, right? Give a man a fish or eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and he can provide for his family for a lifetime, right? So I believe that it starts from the very, from education. If you're going to bring children out of poverty, then you need to focus on educating them and changing the dynamics of societies and communities around the world. So we do things like build schools. I'm just in the middle of launching a school in Pakistan in an area where the children were being taught under a tree. They had no school in that village, in the community, and the girls weren't allowed to even come under the tree and learn. You know, it was just, there was like one person that's like semi-educated in the village. That individual would teach the kids, and there's no room for the girls because they're not important, right? So that's the thinking anyway. In that area. So we built a school there. So we focus on refugees all over the world.
That's amazing.
And you know, it's this thing about the more you give, the more you get back, right?
Yeah.
And I found that when times, and it's really important that people understand this concept that don't just give to charity when times are good, right? Give to charity when times are bad too. And you'll see the blessings just come, right? So we've always been very, and of course our religion teaches us that we have to give a percentage of our wealth to charity anyway, as you know, as an accountant. So we just, and I love it. You know, that's where that's what I really enjoy. I haven't done it as much now, but I used to travel quite a lot to the field. But I'm really looking forward this year, towards the end of the year, to getting out there and going to Africa and to Pakistan to launch my school, and let's see what happens with this war.
That must make you feel really, we won't talk about the war and the politics, but we'll be here all day. But that must make you feel really fortunate, like you said, to help people. And sometimes when you have a bad day, and then sometimes you see like what other people are going through, just puts everything in perspective. And it's not that you're thinking, oh, I'm better than them on my life. It's like just puts everything into perspective. How grateful you should be.
I think we need it every now and then, as you know, living in this society where everything's just given to us on a plate in a way. We need a reality strike every now and then. Look, your life will, and I encourage people to go out and come out with me if the opportunity allowed it. But once you've been to an area that's been affected by war, for example, or by famine, you'll never be the same again. Your outlook on life and the way so the first thing you're going to do when you come back, Kully, is you're going to hug your kids so tight, and you're going to appreciate them and your family. And then you're going to walk into your house, and when you open your fridge, you're going to be grateful. You're going to be grateful because of what you've got in there, So when you've been out and you've seen how people are living, I'm just so grateful. Every morning that I wake up,
powerful.
I'm grateful for everything that God's given me. My health, my family, my friends, and the wealth is a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that there's many people out there that are wealthy but are very unhappy. There's no contentment. Why? Because it's just about the money. Life cannot just be about earning money. We weren't put on this earth just to go out to reproduce and to make money, And if your life is just that, if the only thing that you have in your life is that you get up, you go to work, you come back, and that's it, then for me, you're living a very crappy existence, if I'm honest. I can't really even think of
Sheltered,
shout,
yeah.
it's just, but when your life becomes about other people and about helping and about giving back, and giving back doesn't always have to be monetary, giving your time, volunteering, I mean, we're told in our religion that even a smile is charity. Somebody could be having a bad day and you smiled at them, you could change the whole dynamics of their day, right? So removing an object from the roadside is charity, So just being grateful and showing gratitude every morning will change your life.
Just on that, from I remember you from college. I don't really remember you as being outwardly religious, but now I see a lot of things that you mentioned and what I see on social media, you're really into your faith. Would you say the loss of your daughter, is that what drove you, not drove you, or connected you again?
Yeah. So when we lost Khadija, and before Khadija we lost another son too. So we lost.
I wasn't aware. Sorry.
So I've lost two kids. I've lost Ismail, my son, and then my daughter a few years after. That was when we turned to God, right? Yeah. So the only way that we were going to get through that was through God, and had it not been for my faith and my religion, I probably wouldn't have been sat here today talking to you about what happened, right? So you're right. So yes, it did. It brought me so much closer to my Creator, and that's where the charity side of things comes into, because actually in the giving is the healing. Yeah. I see Khadija in every child that I look at, in every girl that I look at. I see Khadija, right? So there's no way that I'm going to let, where I have the ability and the power and the control, I'm going to let little Khadijas all over the world go without, right? Go without an education. So I always, if you see that other people's kids are your own, and treat them as you would want for your own, and want for others what you want for yourself, right? We're taught this, right? So want for your brother what you want for yourself. So if you want to be successful, then you should want that for your brother, right? But unfortunately, in our community,
an Asian community, that's the worst.
Look, so the one thing that I don't do, and I always say this on socials, is I don't gatekeep, right? If something works for me and it's a success, then I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it with my audience, right? And that's why sometimes I share the most random things. Like, guys, I've just discovered this product or this restaurant or whatever. Because I like that, right? I'm not going to gatekeep it, right? People, we gatekeep too much. Guys, we've got to stop gatekeeping, man. Honestly, don't gatekeep. If something works and it's worked for you, tell people about it.
And even today, look, I get that you when I approached you and you said that you're going to wind down the content creation, and you're here today, and I really respect that, because I know how busy you are. All the things that you mentioned, the family side of things, and then you've got the business going on, the charity work that you're doing, trying to do the coaching business, and dealing with your own clients. Take your time out. I appreciate that.
No. Look, I've followed you, bro. And you're doing an amazing job, right? And obviously, there's a lot of value that people can get from your content. So again, by me helping you, indirectly, I'm helping others, right? Yeah. Because I wasn't going to wind down the content creation, I was going to wind down the podcast, because I think so. And what I said was because, as you probably seen, right? I've recorded I can't remember how many podcasts that I've been on, right? People are probably getting bored now, right? Just type in my name and it'll come up all over YouTube, right? So I've recorded so many podcasts, and I just thought that actually, let me just take a break from it. Then when you asked me to, I thought, I can't say no to Kully, man. So I had to come on, but it was funny actually. There was a local podcast once, right? And they approached me and said, Sunny, can you come on our podcast, right? So what had happened is, just before they approached me, and someone else approached me, and I said no, right? I wouldn't go on their podcast, and because again I was taking a bit of a break from podcasts at the time, right? So then I said to the guy, I said, look guys, I don't want to offend you, right? But I've said no to someone else, and if they see me on your podcast, they're going to be a bit offended. So it's just better that we don't, right? And then afterwards, I had this realization. I was like, I sat there after I sent them the message on Instagram, and I thought, who am I to say no to these people, man? I'm not a superstar celebrity, I'm the GOAT, right? But I'm not, I'm not a superstar celebrity, right? So I felt really bad. So, and they were a new podcast starting up, right? So I sent them a message again, right? And I said, look, guys, I've thought about what and I just said that to. I was completely honest with them. I said, look, guys, I said no to you, and I've had a realization that I'm not like a Ronaldo, right? So who am I to say no to you? You know,
Not yet.
yeah. Well, so I'll come on your podcast, right? And so whenever you're happy to have me, I'll come on there, right? And they never invited me back, bro.
Forget this guy. Wasting our time.
But I was being sincere, right? My approach, and I was like, what the hell,
This
man?
guy thinks it's too big for his boots
but
now.
honestly, so like, even in that, you've got to be careful, because look, you get like loads of requests for podcasts, right? And I'm always selective because I always look at the audience too, because remember, there's an automatic, because I'm very precious about my personal brand, as we should be, and I've spent many years building it, and you can
be gone like that,
So I'm always very cautious of the types of podcasts that I record, the hosts of the podcast. There's certain podcasts I would never go on. There's certain podcasts that I'd love to go on, but I'm just not big enough yet for them. But again, who knows?
Know.
Yeah.
But I say that a lot of the podcasts that you recorded, or some of the podcasts that you recorded, similar to myself, in like the UK is not as big or as I'd say focused on podcasts. Yeah, it's obviously a lot of studios are popping up now, but in Dubai, and every single corner of the podcast, everyone's doing it. And you recorded a few there. I've done a few there, and I say it's a lot bigger community, and people are buy into it a lot more.
Absolutely, yeah.
I noticed that you spend a lot of time in Dubai as well. You did. Would you move your family out there?
So, good question. I'm still trying to figure out whether it is somewhere that I could settle my family with. Like, I love Dubai, they're not perfect, as a country, they're not, as a government, they're not perfect, but I do love Dubai. Yeah. So I'm part of the Creator HQ out there. And I travel every year to the Billion Followers Summit.
I saw.
You need to come next year.
Well, honestly. It's funny that you say that, because like I've set up like a little bit, business partner set the business there for us, because accounts and tax, people are asking me all the time, can we set up in Dubai, our business? Yeah.
Nice.
And so we help people do that. And he was going to go to that, but unfortunately his mother passed away.
No way.
Right. But I saw that you was there, it looked.
Like, I go every year, right? And this year I'm actually taking a delegation of influencers from the UK. Yeah. So what I want to do is we want to be the official delegation. Like, everybody, like, there's loads of, like, when you go there, right, you'll just see you'll see influencers, like Mr. Beast was there, Will Smith, like Mufti Menk was there. Some of your Muslim audience know who he is, right? And there were so many other, and like, bro, we're not talking, a couple of 100,000 followers. We are talking millions of followers and billions of likes, right, in terms of interaction. So like and all the platforms are there, YouTube, and it's just an amazing learning opportunity and great networking, right?
That's like saying when you first started in that room with those people, just a bigger room.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it.
Yeah, 100%. And you look, it's your job. I always say this, right? Sometimes we get invited at the table, and sometimes we don't, right? But we're in a position now where if we don't get a seat at the table, Kully, we'll just buy the table, right? And if we don't get a seat,
I'm nicking that.
Yeah. And if we don't get a seat at the restaurant, we'll buy the fucking restaurant. My point being is, and let me tell you how that works, right? So there was an award ceremony that we used to go to, and it's our industry Oscars, right?
Okay.
So we wanted, for many years we couldn't afford to go to it, right? So again, come back to this delayed gratification, right? So we couldn't afford to go to it because like £200 a ticket, it's in London, you've got to pay for hotel and travel, and we just couldn't afford to go, right? So we went once, me and my partner, we were invited by one of our clients, and we walked into this award ceremony, and we felt really uncomfortable because we were probably the very few brown people in this room, right? In an industry that's like where all the workers, so we just felt really uncomfortable, and we promised ourselves that when we come back next time, we're not going to feel uncomfortable. So fast forward a few years, we were the headline sponsors at this thing.
That must have gone down a treat.
Yeah. So we became the headline sponsors. I was on stage about 5 times, giving out awards. I had 2 tables that were very ethnically diverse, and right at the front of the gig, right? And we showed up. Yeah. We showed up, right? Our name was plastered everywhere. My point being is that we could have quite easily walked away from that award ceremony and thought, it's not for us, we don't fit, our face doesn't fit, and we'll never go back, right? But actually, No.
You turned it on its head.
We turned it on its head, right? We became the faces, right?
Yeah.
We sponsored the awards, and we didn't apply for. So now we don't apply for the awards.
Yeah.
We're the guys that are giving out the awards.
That's a big thing, because you didn't sit there and feel sorry for yourself. Like, a lot of people do these. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't get the job, or I didn't get that sale, and they'll sit there and do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just thinking outside the
Yeah,
box.
thinking outside the box. So you might not get a seat at the table. And I joke about kind of buying the restaurant or whatever, right? But you might not get a seat at the table, right? But buy the table. Like in the early days, I remember we don't drink, right? We don't have alcohol, and I don't really like it on our tables neither. So what was happening was we were like, I mean, if you're going to come to a thingy with me, I can't stop you from drinking. That's your prerogative, right? That's your choice. But as an individual, I just don't like. I don't mind. I just don't want someone to get drunk on my table.
Yeah.
Because I did doors for many years. Right?
You've seen it all.
I've seen it all. I've run some of the biggest clubs in Birmingham, right? So I'm not, I don't. It's just like, it just brings back trauma, bro. Drunk people can go mental, right? So anyway, we'd have like we'd get a table, and we'd buy like 4 seats, right? 4 tickets, and then there's obviously another 6, right? And then there'd be people on there like drinking and whatever, and just sometimes just acting stupid. So then we made a rule, right? If we're going to an event, we're buying the table.
Yeah.
Right, we're buying the table, and if drinks come with it, then we'll say that's fine. Replace it with Red Bull, all the soft drinks and whatever. So there is. People just need to start thinking out the box. I want to be on this table, and that's when a good coach comes in, because one of the services is that actually your coach should be able to arrange introductions for you.
That's a massive thing that money can't buy as well, really.
100%.
Yeah.
So my client comes to me and I say, Sunny, there's a certain company that I want to speak to. There's a certain individual. So one of my clients now, she wants to do podcasts, right? So my job now is to speak to my contacts, and no doubt, I'm grateful that I've built a reputation that if I call someone and say, I've got this individual and they need to come on your podcast, they're not going to say no. Yeah. If they know me, they're not going to say no, right? And that's when a good coach comes in, because he opens up doors for you and arranges introductions that you'll never get from anywhere else. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
You can't put a price on that.
And that's
yeah. So going back to it, I probably will end up in Dubai, to be honest. At the moment, I travel there a lot. It's great because when I announce it, so before I never used to announce it, right? Because I'm security conscious, I didn't want people to know like exactly where I was at what time, right? But then I thought, you know what, so now I announce it like a week before I go to Dubai, and then again, very grateful that the invitations start coming in. Can you come and record a podcast with us? The interviews, dinners, meetings, events, whatever, and the thing I love about Dubai is this last trip that I was in, I got invited to Dubai Fashion Week, right? So I went to I think it was a Latin fashion show or something, right? Yeah, a story for another day. But I went to this Latin fashion show, and I met some people there, right? And then, literally within the space of like 24 hours, I got invited to like 5 other events from people that I'd met, right? I didn't go to them because again, I'm very selective.
It's time as well.
Yeah, but you have to become exclusive, right? Like you can't be seen at every event.
Supply and demand, and then what?
Become exclusive, bro. Like I don't want to. It's important that we establish that this is not being big-headed and this is not being arrogant in any way, right? This is just the way of the world. I don't make the rules. I just try and abide by them and sometimes break them, right? But become selective and become exclusive. You don't want to be that puddle that's going to every single event, right? So when you do turn up,
we see that all the time.
I mean, don't even. That's another podcast for another day, right? But because the rooms get smaller as you grow, right? So my job now is, and I'm working on a couple of projects, but it's to bring high net worth individuals and entrepreneurs into one room, right? Where everybody's on the same wavelength, everybody's successful, and everybody can, speak to each other and do deals and network and whatever. But there's no one in there selling.
Yeah.
Right. There's no one in there like selling. Right. So if you're going to be a sales guy, you're not allowed in. Right. So the rooms get smaller as you grow bigger, and they get more difficult to find.
Yeah.
Right. So you won't see successful people at every single event because there's no value to it for them. So you have to be selective with the events that you go to. Again, just think about the value that they bring to you. And more often than not, you're bringing more value by attending the event than you're actually getting from the event.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with holding yourselves in high regard in that. As always, remain humble, of course. Never forget where you come from.
Yeah.
But know your worth, know your value.
That's what I sometimes think we forget. But yeah, like I looked at Dubai as well, and looked at my kids' school, looked at communities out there, and it was not the right time. Because my son's in secondary school, my daughter's going to secondary school, and she was more reluctant, to leave. And I asked my parents. My parents live next door to me, so I asked them. Would you go? Mum was like, I'll go with the kids. My dad was like, I ain't going anywhere.
And I've got the same problem. I've got exactly the same problem because again, my son's doing his GCSEs and my other son's just started high school, and whatever. I'm not like overly worried about my kids because there's some great schools there and great communities, right? But I've been to Dubai so many times, and again, I love the country, but I'm still trying to figure out after the amount of time that I've spent there, is it somewhere where I can bring up my kids? And my mum and dad would come with me, but then it's unfair on them because I've got siblings here, and they've built a whole community, as we know. They're not going to get that community in Dubai, so.
Not straight away.
Not straight away.
And they're not that age yet where they're going to go out and about and be active. And
and I actually think that, for me, it wouldn't be a problem because, as you know,
you'll love it.
I'm a networker and I'm a doer. So actually, I'm actually really looking forward to the challenge because it will be like Sunny 2.0, right? But in Dubai, like Sunny on steroids. So I know that I can build that community, and I would very quickly start building a network and my community because I've got the blueprint of what I did here in the UK, right? But I've made the mistake, so I would just kind of accelerate that process. And I'm already making contacts. I've got friends and family out there. So, but I'm excited for the future, Kully. I just don't know whether it's in Dubai.
I think it'll be so much easier. I spent a lot of time in Dubai and met people. One thing I find there much better than the UK. People are willing to help you. If someone's made it, they don't care. They don't look down on you, or they will introduce you to someone else because either someone's already been to that path, or they've from a different country and they've there for the same reasons, for better opportunities. The only reason I was looking to go there is literally, it's not about the tax saving. I'm an accountant, it's funny to say that, but it's not about the tax saving because I'll spend more there. What else I'll be doing? It's the safety for my kids.
Yeah. I mean, that's that again. You can't take that. You can't take that from them, right? Regardless of what's happening at the moment, in terms of violence and robberies and theft and whatever, it's unbelievable. You're right, it's a safety because the UK, and I feel this country's given us so much, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy that actually slags off the UK and says, yes, we're in the high tax bracket. Yes, we get flipping rossed every time we do our tax returns, right?
I had the conversation. People, I don't mind paying taxes, which might sound funny again. Yes, if you're paying taxes or high rate, it's good because it means you're doing well.
You're doing well,
But what are you getting for those taxes? That's the problem. It's what you're getting for those taxes.
Yeah.
And really, we're getting fuck all.
No, you're right. You're right. I can't. I mean, when I've had my tax bills in the past, I'm just like, it's eye watering, and it just makes me like, I'm like, what the, and it almost demotivates you for making money, right? I was speaking to a friend yesterday.
Motivates you to make more.
Yeah, no, but like knowing that you can do a deal, right? Let's say I make 200 grand. Let's say I do a flip, right? I make 200 grand. 100 grand is going straight to the government, right?
Mad.
So like when my advisors tell me
you need a new accountant.
Absolutely, maybe, right? But so I no longer, back in the days we'd be like, you've made £100. You've made £100, bro, right? You might get £80 of it, right, or £90, but you made £100.
Yeah.
Now when I'm having conversations with my partners, it's like, how much money have we made? You've made 50 grand. No, we've actually made 25, right?
Yeah.
Let's just get it right. Oh yeah. Well, how can you forget about that? We live in England, right? So I really wish that the government would just sort their shit out, because I actually love the country, and I'm not going to be one of these people that's going to slag it off in that sense. Yes, there's a lot of things that we get wrong.
They're giving us loads,
but it's given us the foundations, the safety to an extent to practice our religion. I'm a Muslim, right? Women can cover up and go out. There's no problem. They can wear the burqa and there's no issues. We can have beards, and Sikh guys can wear turbans.
Yeah.
There's no, there's the freedom of religion right here. So love the country. Love the foundations and what it's given us. So I'm not going to be this guy that's going to slag it. Yes, there's lots of things that I don't agree with here. But I still won't take away from what it's given me, right?
That's good.
So then now we look at Dubai, and again, I don't want to be the mistake that a lot of people made is when they went to Dubai and they had this amazing life, they started slagging off the UK.
Yeah.
So now that they're back,
Yeah.
right, people are reminding them, right?
That's what I like on the straight away. People were very quick, when the bombings were happening, and like you should never, when someone's in a bad position, you should never like say anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people were quick to say, "Oh yeah, you're coming back home now."
That's and that's because people were waiting for the opportunity, right? Because these same people were the ones that were going to Dubai, making videos on the palm, saying, "Oh, it's sunny here.
Yeah.
What's the weather like in the UK? I hear someone else has been stabbed today. Oh, well, whatever." So like, don't do that, guys. Don't be that guy, right? If you're gonna go to Dubai and live a life, man.
Yeah.
It's fine. Promote it. Don't get me wrong. Don't gatekeep. If your family are safe and you want other people to come, then fine. I spoke to someone yesterday that lives in Dubai, and he was like, we're actually glad that a lot of people are leaving.
So my friends that live there, and that's exactly the same thing. The guys to reset, the properties resetting, and all the guys that came here for the influence or were peer partying or real estate guys, like wherever. Let's not stereotype. But he goes, they've all gone now.
They've all gone, yeah. So they're actually glad. The traffic's great, the walls are empty, so they're actually enjoying a bit of downtime. I think Dubai will probably get the reset that it requires. I think prices were inflated, like 70% above market value. So I'm looking forward to that reset. I'm glad that I kind of waited, if I'm honest, But I think if I'm a betting man, it'll probably be a hybrid approach for me, to be honest. So I spend a lot of time there anyway. So it's not going to make a difference, to be honest.
You've got your base in the UK.
But I've got clients in Dubai. I've got coaching clients in Dubai. And they, again, happy to make the investment because they can see the value, right? Yeah. But for me, if I just look at Sunny Araf Advisory and my advisory firm, the potential in Dubai is amazing.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it's different. So I'm quite looking forward. I was meant to be there now, launching a business actually.
Before this kicked off, I was supposed to be there as well.
So my plan was straight after Eid. I was going to fly out to Dubai, but I'll probably go in the next couple of weeks, to be honest.
I have to go before May to get my 6-month stamp. So,
oh, no way.
So I'll see what happens.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Might see you out there.
Yeah, I'll speak to you about the golden visa.
Yeah, no worries.
Through the Creator HQ.
Yeah.
You should look at that.
Sound.
Because you're a bit of an influencer now, Kully. So.
Don't worry, get me on there. I'll happily go to the 1 billion summit.
Absolutely.
But no, we covered a lot of aspects, and you spoke about potentially your family going to Dubai. But what's your what's on the horizon for Sunny now, from a business perspective? The consultancy side of the business that you're trying to grow. Is that what you're focusing on now? Then, so what's the future for Sunny Araf?
So what's the future? So we've obviously got our companies that are running, and we're looking to grow them. We're always looking to grow and expand. There's certain things that I'm kind of not so passionate about now in my life, and I maybe will want to let them go. The advisory business, Sunny Araf Advisory, which I've set up, I'm super excited about that, and I'm doing my coaching, which is great. But I think in the immediate future, if we're talking like this year, I really want to focus on content. I think content is key, and if you're an entrepreneur, or a founder or a business owner, and you're not doing content, then you're missing a trick, right? Either you have the ability to do it yourself, either you buy in someone to create content for you. You get editors, as you know, Kully, right? But content is key. And if you're not on social media, and I really want to work on my social brand, because I've pivoted, right? So I've gone from the security guy, I have these different versions of Sunny Araf, right? And although I'm not actively selling or promoting my services as a coach,
again, it's a long-term game.
It's a long-term game, I can only take on a certain amount of clients, right? So I just want to focus on the golden nuggets out there and really work with them. So some of my clients are doing some amazing things, and some of the work that I'm doing with them involves traveling too. So I'm looking forward to going to see their businesses and their ventures and what they're doing. So, and who knows? And again, the charity side of things, I want to ramp that up a bit. I think we've gone a bit lazy with it recently, so I really want to ramp that up. So travel, and still trying to explore the next stop. Everything's gone 360. Our parents came to this country for a better life, and now we're looking to move somewhere else for a better life. But at the same time, not wanting to cut ties with the UK. So who knows? But just still trying to motivate, educate, and inspire people. Kully, that's my main thing, to be honest, bro.
No, you are, and I really appreciate you coming on here. And from my perspective, looking from afar, having not seen you for so many years, but seeing you at college, and then basically connecting with you on social media. I knew you were doing the scooter work, and then just seeing what you were doing on social media and following your journey from afar. It's really good to see. And I said many people don't pat on their own business, each other on the back, or see someone doing good, better than you, or have achieved something good, and you should be proud of what you've achieved and what you've done. And I say, like, from afar, a lot of people will be looking at you and thinking, yeah, he's doing good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. As long as we can give back, bro, that's the main thing. So,
do you guys, if anyone wants to work with you, find you, how is it best to connect?
So just sunnyaraf.com. That's my website. So it's SUNNYARAF, sunnyaraf.com. Go on the website, fill out the inquiry form, and someone will get back to you. Or find me on Instagram. Sunnyaraf1 is my handle, and happy to speak to anyone that wants to connect.
We need to find the Sunny Araf without the one. So
who's
this guy?
India, bro.
Who's this guy?
I don't know who he is, but he's not even an active account. So if anyone knows who owns that account, let me know. Yeah, I'll have it off him. But
no, brilliant, Sunny. Thank you very much for coming on here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in into Karak with Kully. I hope today's chat gave you something to think about. Maybe a spark to take your own business or mindset to the next level. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who needs that push, and stay connected. And if you ever need side business advice, you know where to find me at Taxis. Until next time, keep it strong, keep it real.